Earful Tower listeners, episode 4 already. And we've got a woman in the studio this time. Anyone complaining that it's all been men? It's a woman, Lindsay Tremuda.
I think there's been a pretty good balance in the rest
in
of
the first
so
season.
far.
Yeah, second season, it's all been men so far. But not today. We've got Lindsay Tremuda, and we're going to go around all the arrondissements in the right bank, and she's going to give us a tip of the restaurant that you should eat at.
Are you looking for more challenges there?
Well, I'm not going to... Do you want to try and eat in all of them in one night?
No, really not.
But so you were here for this conversation, James, weren't you? But you were staying quiet in the corner. But Lindsay, of course, get a new book, The New Paris, which is out in bookshops all over the place. And remember to stay listening at the end because we have a story from Corey. That's Corey Frye, the tour guide, French Fry in Paris, and he's going to be talking about a dark chapter of Paris's history.
What's he mentioning this episode?
He messaged me. I obviously don't know what it is, but he said it's going to be food related.
Okay, good.
So yeah,
on
and he sort of did. He said it
I
in a mysterious way.
Something, yeah.
Anyway,
this is not going to be any type of food, is it?
I think it is. But anyway, I'm not going to give anything away. I'm
something
not
very French.
He'll be there at the end, as he usually is, giving us a story. But first, Lindsay Tremuda. Here she is.
Earful Tower with Oliver G.
Here we are in the studio with Lindsay Tremuda.
Hello.
Tremuta.
That's right.
Last time you were in here,
I gave you a way to remember it.
I said it. Well, one of us said it rhymes with Bermuda, but it doesn't really rhyme with Bermuda.
It kind of does.
Well, tell me how to say it.
Bermuda. Tremuda.
No. Okay, now I'm never going to get it.
Tremuda. Bermuda.
Tremuda.
There you go.
So you are the first return guest on the Earful Tower.
I'm so honored.
Wow. Welcome back.
Thank you for welcoming me back.
Well, I figured there's so much things to talk about with you, Lindsay.
Well, I didn't blow it the first time, I guess.
No, you didn't, not at all. When you last talked, for anyone who hasn't listened to one of the early episodes, Lindsay had a book coming out called The New Paris. Lo and behold,
it birthed. I gave birth to this thing.
Is that what you said? It birthed?
Well, it feels like a birth of some sort. I mean, you're like carrying it for so long and you're working on it for so long, and then all of a sudden it comes out. And
everyone buys your baby.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, slightly creepy way of thinking about it, but sure.
But congratulations. The
Thank
book
you so much.
It's on my coffee table.
I know. I had a friend who...
Oh, yeah.
Who saw it at your place.
Your friend that stayed in my house when I was out of town.
Right.
So they saw the book. That's
this funny. Paris is a village, and you needed someone to take your place, and she needed a place, so it worked out.
So tell me about you're on tour, like some kind of pop star or rock star. What does that even mean when an author goes on tour?
Well, that means that they go to different bookstores or other types of venues and either give talks about their book, participate in panels, discussions. No, I mean, yes and no. If you're someone who's really terrified of public speaking, yes. And, the first event I did, I was like super nervous and probably sweating too much. And then because I was doing 5 different cities in a 2-week period, you sort of get kind of well-oiled by the end.
In the US?
Yeah, so that was in the US. Then I had a launch here, which you came to. Thank you.
That was fun.
It was fun.
It felt like everybody in Paris was there.
Oh, I don't think so.
Paris is a village, Lindsay.
Well... That's true.
It was cool though. That was fun.
No, it was all. I think it was like the perfect place to kick things off, and then went straight to LA, and then did San Francisco, Chicago, Philly, where I'm from, and New York. And it just what I learned in the whole experience is just how many people around, well, at least in the U.S., love Paris and genuinely want to meet other people who love Paris and want to talk about it and want to know about it. So that just confirmed that what I did had an audience. And so
any stupid questions about Paris?
No, I mean, people sometimes want to know, something super obvious to us because we live here. But, if it's about where to find the best macaron, I mean, that's maybe an obvious question. Yeah. But, I'm willing to answer almost anything for them.
You know what, Lindsay? That's actually one thing I liked about you before I met you and the blog, Lost in Cheeseland, is you actually are nice. You're a friendly blogger. You responded to people.
Well, what's the point of doing it?
I see in Facebook comments someone say, "What's the deal with this?" You'd respond. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Well, the thing is I don't get a lot of snarky or negative feedback. So if I do, I try to answer it constructively. And otherwise, it's just people who want to learn more about Paris, or if I write about somewhere else, then about that place. And so it makes it worth all the effort.
There's a blogger in Paris who I actually tried to... I'm not going to name her.
Oh.
But someone said you should get this prominent blogger on your show. And it got a little bit messy, I could say, because I tried to contact her. And all I got in response was I was subscribed to her mailing list.
Oh, that's...
And I actually called her out and responded to her and said, did you just subscribe me to your mailing list instead of responding to me? And then I got double as many emails on the subscription list. So won't be having that guest on anytime soon. True story.
Well,
I'm not going to name names.
No,
Lindsay.
I know. But I try to just, the whole point of doing this right from the beginning was to connect with people who really loved Paris. So, if I can make them feel like they know a little bit more about the city that they're either going to visit or want to move to or may one day come back to, then my job is done.
You sound like the kind of person who could recommend a lot of good restaurants.
Well, certainly I have friends who, instead of, looking at my site or whatever I've written, they just text me and ask me for food recommendations.
What if someone asked you to recommend the best restaurants on the right bank ahead of a show and hoped that you wrote them down before you came in? Would you be able to? Well,
I did have a flash yesterday where I was like, I did not write that down yet. This is maybe not an exercise to improvise.
But you have got a notebook in front of you.
I do.
So we're going to do it quickly. We'll do the first 4 and then we'll just get back to chatting.
Okay.
But talk me through them. First, I asked you to come up with the best, how did I phrase it? The best restaurant that you have to check out for whatever reason on the right bank. We didn't do the whole city.
No, because
no one goes to the left bank.
Well, that show would be like 10 hours.
Yeah, that's right. But we're going to do it real quick. So just breeze through them. First 4.
Okay, so first arrondissement.
Let's go.
I chose Balagan. So Balagan is...
Balagan.
It's Israeli. So the experimental group is sort of running the restaurant piece, and Dorothy Mélichon did the design of the interior, but you've got 2 incredible chefs from Jerusalem and who also have restaurants in London who are doing the menu, and staff from Jerusalem have moved over, and it's just the vibe is lively.
Cool.
It's like a piece of Tel Aviv, but in Paris.
Is it expensive like everything else in the first arrondissement?
It's more affordable than you'd think.
Okay.
Now you can go for just a few little smaller plates if you don't want to have like the full shebang, and they also have a cocktail bar.
Shebang.
Shebang.
Is that Israeli food?
No.
No. See, I'm sure I don't know what's going on. Go on, let's go through them. 2, 3, 4.
Second arrondissement, Frenchy. I think that's a classic. Gregory Marchand. He sort of transformed the Rue du Nil, which is the street that his place is on. He's also got Frenchy wine bar. So if you can't get into the restaurant, which actually is quite small in terms of the number of covers that it can accommodate, then you've got the wine bar across the street, which is open every day, and there's no reservations, so just show up.
And they have a street party once a year.
They do. It's like I grew up having neighborhood block parties in my
Philadelphia,
in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and this was the first time I experienced anything like remotely similar.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. So it was fun, and you have all the vendors on or all the shops on Rue du Nil who open up their doors, and just a fun time.
Steak and cheese sandwiches in Philadelphia. Is that it?
They're called cheesesteaks. It was close.
Oh, man, I had one. I had one in America.
Yeah, and?
It was great. Heart attack on a plate, though.
Was it with real cheese or
Couldn't
cheese
tell.
whiz?
Couldn't tell. I don't know what was going on there. But third hour in this one. Shoot.
Le Marie Celeste.
Oh,
so
yeah. I've been
that's
there.
also, it's like cocktail and wine bar / oysters and seafood
/ people watching and celeb hangout, I've heard.
Celebs? Who have you seen there?
That's what I've heard.
You're just a guy who doesn't like reveal anything.
No,
You're
I've
like,
actually... Someone told me they saw Scarlett Johansson or something there.
Oh, that's possible. Maybe when she used to live in Paris before she said, Paris sucks, I'm leaving.
Was that on like David Letterman or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh. No, but we love her. We want to get her on the show one day.
Okay, I won't be
She's
there for
probably
that
listening.
Maybe you can ask her about why she couldn't handle it in Paris.
Yeah.
But she has that popcorn place. Did you know that?
That's exactly right. In the Marais, she's opened a popcorn place.
I don't know
Biggest
if that's
eyebrow
working.
raiser.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Who really like goes, oh, what am I? I'm walking down the street and what I crave right now is some gourmet popcorn.
Maybe it's what we've all been missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You try to get her to talk about that.
We'll see. Scarlett?
If you're listening.
All right, okay, 4.
We challenge you.
Mary Celeste I've been to, so...
Oh, good.
I'm on 2 out of 3, so...
Okay. For the 4th arrondissement, it was a tie between
Okay, go on. You get 1 tie.
Okay. Miznan, which again is another Tel Aviv import. It's like beautiful pita sandwiches, roasted cauliflower, just incredible. Or Grand Coeur, which is a different price level and more formal.
As in more expensive.
Yes. Yeah. But beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful food, Brazilian chef.
I've got
Rafael
this.
Gomez.
This is cool. All these are going to be written on the site, so you can figure out how to get there and all that. But that's a good start to the list.
Okay.
back to back to talking about Paris and France, because that's why we're all here. I'm just going to bring up a little anecdote that I wanted to hear your thoughts on. So in a previous, it's not really an anecdote, it's an observation.
Okay.
So in a previous episode, we had Olivier Giraud, who's the How to Be a Parisian.
Yeah, I remember him. Yep.
So I noticed, charming and lovely man, but I noticed when he said the word honesty, he said honesty. And I thought it was kind of interesting because a lot of people talk about French people drop the H. So instead of saying happy, they say appy. But a lot of people maybe didn't know that they add H's, like in honesty. Did you ever notice that? You're married to a French guy, right?
I am. I think it's just difficult for them to know the rules for pronouncing H.
So they've got this whole different approach to the letter H. So the typical French, when you're imitating, you go, "Oh, I'm very happy to be here," right? So now we know that they add.
It's true. You might hear more of a honestly, right?
This guy went full
honestly.
And it made me think of a very close friend of mine who I sometimes mention on the show, who's a Breton sailor. Not really, but that's how I refer to him. So he knows what I'm talking about. But he says, instead of happy hour, he says appy hour.
I think it's the flow. It's like
hour.
It's a lot for the brain to process.
Do you know what he calls Quentin Tarantino's newest movie?
No.
The Eightful Hate.
Oh.
Yeah. Interesting, huh?
I mean, it's funny because I just watched on Netflix, there's Gad Elmaleh. I always have struggled with his last name. The comedian, Gad Elmaleh.
Yeah.
His stand-up, and he talks about how he's been living in the U.S. for a while. And the trouble with English is where to put the emphasis on the words. And it's funny because I always thought that was like such a silly problem to have. But of course it's not silly. I mean, I just don't think about speaking English that way. We instinctively know where to emphasize certain words, and there's no like rhyme or reason for it. So
good for him going viral in America with his comedy in English, though, huh?
It's pretty subdued.
Pretty subdued comedy?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the comedy that I grew up listening to.
It's like his 11th language that he's speaking, though.
Yeah, this is true. Like, for a guy who can get on stage, and this one was in French, though. The one I saw on Netflix, he was in Montreal. So it was in French, but I've heard similar jokes in English that he's done. And he's been on, I don't know if it was Jimmy Fallon, or he was on one of the late shows.
He was on the Seinfeld, the new Seinfeld
Comedians in Cars. Okay, so that's impressive. He's making his foray into the U.S. quite well.
Okay. Let's talk about this so-called competitor on the podcast scene.
Oh, excuse me. We don't talk about the same things at all.
No, I'm just kidding. You're not a competitor at all. It's another podcast in Paris. But have a plug. Tell us about it.
Well, so it's very originally titled. It's called The New Paris.
The New Paris.
No, it's supposed to be sort of an extension of the book, because things will obviously, the movement and the changes I talk about in the book, well, things are going to keep evolving from there. So having a podcast is a way to keep that topic fresh and keep bringing people on who are part of the continuing changes. And it's a fun platform to do it. And so I have a co-host named Alice Kavanaugh. She's a journalist, and we have a great time doing it. And I think it's a nice switch for us who are always behind our computers to be able to just
sit behind a microphone,
sit and talk.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's refreshing, and people are obviously really into listening to podcasts. And before us, there really weren't any coming out of Paris in English, right? So you've got France Inter, and you have On va déguster, right? So you have things in French that exist, but nothing that's really talking about some of what's going on here.
Do you know, at your book launch, what month was that? When was
April.
That? In April, I met a handful of people who said they're starting podcasts. Honestly.
Oh God!
So, no, it's good. I
now
like it. The more the better. I say.
No, it's true that it needs to happen. There's a willing audience. You just need to create the content. So
subscribe to our podcast, The New Paris.
You can find it on iTunes. And like we're streamed on World Radio Paris.
Indeed. Subscribe, click, like, follow. Hey, while you're at it, subscribe to our show, The Earful Tower, if you don't know what you're listening to, because you've just come.
Because you also get really good guests.
Yeah, it's been fun. Been some fun guests. Who are some of the guests you've had?
We've had Raphael Navot, who's the interior architect from a new hotel. We've had Sharon Heinrich, who's a pastry expert from Israel, who also gives tours. We've had Clotilde Dussolier, the French food writer.
Started a podcast as well.
I know, but hers is all about well-being, and
it's in French.
It's wonderful.
Can't understand a word of it.
But and she's really regular. It's every week.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I don't.
This is every week, officially. Second season. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay, let's talk back about some restaurants.
Okay, so
Let's do another
jump.
4.
Let's jump to the 8th arrondissement.
Because we're skipping the left bank.
That's right. That's why.
Right.
So that's why we're skipping ahead. The 8th arrondissement is a little tough because it's so moneyed over there. So I chose Le Doyen as a Michelin-starred restaurant. I feel like there has to be a mix. So
that's what is that? The best.
Well, it has 3 stars.
Yeah.
It's Yannick Aleno. So for listeners who might want a special occasion restaurant, they could go to Le Doyen.
Hey, we have rich listeners too.
Do you know that for a fact?
I've got no idea. Get in touch.
Get in touch if you are. 9th arrondissement, Le Pont Ruche. So that's not a new restaurant, but it's a very well done, more classic French restaurant.
Cool.
And the same owners opened Caillebotte, which is more modern and in a slightly different part of the 9th.
Gotcha.
10th arrondissement, I'd be remiss not to talk about Holy Belly.
Oh, Holy
where
Belly.
I just saw you 2 days
we bumped
ago.
into each other there the other day.
So obviously they've...
This is the second Holy Belly that you're recommending, or the first one, or are they the same creature?
Well, they're slightly different. So the original is under construction, will reopen in September. The new one is the big brother, smooth running ship.
Sure.
And
lots of mirrors.
Lots of space, less waiting. Runs very, very smoothly. Still great stuff.
Cool.
So
Love that place.
yeah.
That's not the first place I bumped into you, though. I
No.
bumped into you at for
Café au Bocanf.
avid listeners will remember that when Lindsay was first on, I put her on the spot, said recommend the cafe. She said Café au Bocanf. I went in there. Who did I see there but Lindsay Tremuda?
Well, I told you that was like my canteen. So
Wow.
I was
And then
always
you
there.
introduced me to Guy from Café au Bocanf, who was on the world's first walk show.
Walk show. Is
Yeah,
that what
it's
you're
like,
calling
it's
it?
like a
walk
talk show, but we were walking. Anyway, lovely guy.
Yeah.
Literally. Guy.
Right. His name is Guy.
He listens to the show.
I know.
He'll be listening.
He's going to think this is so weird.
Yeah. All right.
We're
Where are
going
we
to jump
up
ahead. So we've got 11th arrondissement. I chose L'Astier, which is an institution in the 11th arrondissement, also very classic
The
French.
edgy 11th arrondissement.
Yeah, but this restaurant is not edgy.
Have you heard people call the arrondissement edgy?
Yeah, I think that's a inappropriate use of the word edgy.
No, trendy.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived there for 11 years,
Yeah.
so I don't feel like it's any of that. I just think it's as cool as it was
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, you've lived there a lot longer than I have. 6 months.
You're a newbie.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
The 12th arrondissement d'Ersou, which is Taku Sakini's restaurant. It's beautiful, modern, slightly Asian-infused food with cocktail pairings as an option.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Then if we were to jump to the 16th,
Please do.
because that's like a big jump.
Yeah.
I would say Les Grands Verts, which is new. It's in the Palais de Tokyo. So the team behind Candelaria and La Marie Celeste, they're called Quixotic Projects. It's their new restaurant. And it just opened, but you can go for a cocktail if you can't stay for dinner.
Nice.
And it's open all day.
Great.
17th arrondissement,
I like
Papillon.
the way you say arrondissement.
I just say
You had a
it.
good
the way- I think I just say it the way I know to say
I
it.
struggle with the R's.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
Papillon.
Butterfly.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Look at that. Okay. So again, a little bit, it's sort of a mid-range restaurant, really beautiful food. 18th arrondissement, Il Brigante for pizza. Extraordinary.
It sounds Italian.
It's right. Pizza's Italian.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
right.
This is good. You got a good mix of different flavors.
I
and
try to
tastes.
do that.
Yeah,
Well,
nice.
Paris is a mix. It's not just, steak
Some
feed.
call it a melting pot.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I wouldn't.
The
Edgy.
the
An edgy
19th
city.
arrondissement, La Table d'Hugo Desnoyers. So it's all steak. He's a butcher. So it's he's got 2, but this is the one in the 19th. And then the 20th, the institution in the 20th is Le Baratin. But I'd actually say if you're not into that, go to Le Grand Bain. From English chef Edward Delling Williams,
I've
and
been to that one.
he does a Sunday roast.
Oh, really?
Sundays, yeah. So
But
if
he's
you're-
kind of like experimental with his food, isn't he?
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And just also great to go for a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Great vibe.
Okay, cool. Well, that was a really good. That was a good list of the whole.
I know. Maybe you'll have me back to do Left Bank.
Well, perhaps, yeah. If you want to come back.
I'll think about it.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you could be the first repeat guest.
Be happy to.
Let's finish on a funny story that I read on the internet.
Oh God.
You want to hear it?
Okay.
It's kind of France related, but I just felt like telling someone. I thought you might appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just I don't know who wrote it. It's just sort of went viral once, and I found it the other day. And it's someone that's written it. He said, "When I was young, stop me if you've heard this one before. When I was young, my father said to me, 'Knowledge is power.' Francis Bacon, as in the English philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
I understood it as knowledge is power. France is bacon. Francis Bacon." Okay. For more than a decade, I wondered over the meaning of the second part and what was the surreal linkage between the two. If I said the quote to someone, knowledge is power, France is bacon, they nodded knowingly. Or someone might say knowledge is power, and I'd respond, France is bacon. And and they would look at me like I'd said something very odd, but they'd thoroughly agree with me. And once I asked the teacher, what is knowledge is power, France is bacon, what does it mean? And they gave me a big explanation about the first bit, but they were oddly silent about the France is bacon bit. It wasn't until a decade later that I understood that it meant France is bacon.
You don't think anybody or that guy would have maybe Google didn't exist?
He was a kid. This could have happened 100 years ago.
So there's no date attached
It was
to
just,
this.
I just saw it swimming around on the internet. Well, there you go, Lindsay. Fantastic job on the restaurant.
Thank you.
That's plenty of work for anyone who feels like eating in Paris to check out.
Yeah, it's enough to start with.
And as for you, I think your book tour continuing.
All of that's on my website, lostincheeseland.com.
Lostincheeseland.com.
Right.
So, and that's where we can follow you. Facebook, Instagram, Lost in Cheeseland.
That's right. Without the I in.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm traceable.
You're traceable. And where do we find your book?
Anywhere. So in Paris, it's available at W.H. Smith, Garignani, L'Appartement Cézanne. They have it online as well.
Well, congratulations again. Well done for getting it all going. And we'll see you when we see you on the podcast again, I suppose.
Sounds good.
Or in a cafe in Paris.
More likely.
À bientôt.
À bientôt.
Well, that's it for this episode. Someone's at the door.
I think it's time.
It's time.
It's time for Corey's story.
Corey Stories. Or Corey's Story. Hey, Corey.
It's always time for a Corey story.
Long time no see.
Long time.
Yeah, good to see you guys. How you been?
Pretty well.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you want a drink?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Did you see Lindsay?
I did. Yes, love Lindsay. She's fantastic.
She's brilliant.
I'm a big fan of her Instagram account.
She got a good Instagram account.
Oh, yeah. Inspiring.
Thousands of followers as well.
Yeah.
Corey, what you got for us?
Okay, today I've got something food related.
That makes sense because Lindsay's just been talking about restaurants.
And I'm hungry.
I think we'll stick with that theme. A lot of great food, of course, to be eaten in Paris. But I want to go back to when there was a terrible famine in Paris. In 1870.
Why are your
1870?
stories always
Yeah, they're
negative,
always
Corey?
No, this is a cool story.
Oh, good. Okay.
Come on. Hey, we're on the edge of our seats.
They're not negative. They're cool.
Yeah, you're right.
So there was something called the Franco-Prussian War. And the Prussians...
The FP War.
Yeah, they were besieging Paris. Rather than bomb it to submission, they decided they would starve it into surrender. So Paris was going to endure 133 days of famine. Now, for a while, they had traditional food sources, but they ran out of them real quick. And so they had to move down the food chain a little bit to horses. So all of a sudden, 65,000 horses are slaughtered throughout Paris to feed the population, about 650 per day. Even the stallions of Napoleon III, the emperor at the time, were slaughtered for food. Okay, so then they started to run out of horse meat. So they had to work down to cats and dogs and pigeons and fish from the public fountains. And then they ran out of that and they had to move down to sewer rats. And so people were literally surviving off of these rodents and these pets.
What next?
Wait, this is a long way from the lovely restaurants that Lindsay was just recommending.
Well, this was the reality in at this time. So what they had was you would find in the butcher shops in the window, instead of typical meats, you would find rats, literally. And cat meat. And to give you an idea of how unattainable or how expensive this stuff was, an average day laborer in Paris back then would make about 2 francs per day, and to buy a rat to feed your family was 3 francs.
You got to go catching the rats.
People were actually buying them.
Oh yeah, people would line up at the butcher shops.
There was no food, James. There was a famine.
Now, it got even worse, if you can imagine. They had no choice but to raid the Paris Zoo. And all of these exotic animals, including a couple of beloved elephants and snakes and zebra and kangaroo and all of this, they had no choice. So what you had were restaurants, very high-end restaurants in Paris at that time, serving very strange things on their menu. Nothing like Lindsay is recommending nowadays.
I don't think you're allowed to eat elephant anymore.
I've done it, yeah.
Probably not.
I wonder what it tastes like, though.
We'll bring some in for next week, maybe, and we'll have a little tasting.
I can tell you what kangaroo tastes like. We used to feed it to my dog in Australia.
Yeah. Well, you're Australian. You guys all eat that. You eat that every day, right?
People, it's a bit bouncy.
Ooh.
That doesn't even make sense. Okay, so
to finish up, there was
That doesn't even make sense.
I know.
So to finish up, there were restaurants that would serve very bizarre things like, and these are very high-end restaurants, serving elephant stew or soup with kangaroo. Or you could get not spare ribs, but bear ribs, okay, with venison sauce. and it was really bizarre stuff. But they were washing it all down with the finest French wines.
Limited
So-
time.
because there was
only,
plenty of wine
There's
left.
plenty of wine left.
Yeah.
And there were even thematic dishes where you could, like family style, where you could get a cat on a platter, cooked cat with rats flanked around the sides.
Oh man.
Now, still today, if you go to a French supermarket, you won't find elephant and kangaroo necessarily, but you will find horse all over the place.
Yeah.
Because people sort of developed a taste for it, and it's rare, but still today, people...
Well, it's weird when you
Yeah.
think about cows and horses, similar animals. It's just that we all love a good horse, don't we?
Yeah, it's just because horses are
Were they
beautiful.
not eating horses before that?
To my knowledge, no. This was really the catalyst
from
for
famine.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Intriguing. And so today, a different Paris.
Absolutely.
I ain't seen no elephant.
So there's a different side to the culinary history of Paris.
Well, that's been a good story and a good mix.
You know how I was saying I was hungry? Do you want to go for a little rat and sewage rats?
What
Sewer
a
rat and
contrast between Lindsay and Corey. That's all I have to say. But thank you for bringing your story of the week, Corey. Corey Frye, French Fry in Paris, best tours in the city.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week. And any listeners that want to do one of his tours, just mention the show and he'll look after you. You'll look after them, will you?
Absolutely.
Okay,
It's
well,
a
there you-
lovely places to eat.
yeah,
Stop
just
by,
make sure you eat first
I'm
before you
gonna
hear his
feed
story.
you the strangest foods you've ever seen.
Anyway, guys, tune in next week. We have got the guy behind Invisible Paris. If you never heard of this blog, you
Never
should be
seen
reading
it.
it anyway. Never seen it. But we've got him in, and he's got a new book. He's going to be talking all about Paris. And Corey, we'll see you then next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. Looking
see
forward
you
to it.
then. Thanks for listening, guys.
Take care. Cheers.
Earful Tower with Oliver G.